Ladies, let me ask you something. When did kindness turn into weakness? When did caring become a curse? You've been told that being soft makes you lovable, but in reality, it's what's breaking you. The world doesn't reward softness. It tests it. So if you're tired of being taken for granted, ignored, or treated like an option, it's time to stop being a soft woman and start being a strong one with standards. You know what I see happening more and more? Too many women confusing being nice with being respected. There's a big difference. And somewhere along the way, someone convinced you that being agreeable, being easygoing, being the one who doesn't make things complicated is what makes you valuable. But let me tell you something, being nice might make people comfortable, but it doesn't make them committed. You've been told your softness is your strength, but the truth is, when you let that softness go unchecked, it turns into submission. You start saying, it's fine when it's not. You start shrinking yourself to avoid conflict. You start accepting behavior that you'd never tolerate from anyone else. All because you don't want to seem difficult. You want to keep the peace. But that kind of peace is fake. It's peace built on silence, on swallowing your emotions, on pretending you're okay so no one feels uncomfortable. That's not peace. That's emotional exhaustion dressed up as kindness. The problem isn't your heart. The problem is how you give it. You think being loving means being available. You think being kind means saying yes. You think being patient means tolerating things that drain you. But love without limits turns into self-abandonment. And there's nothing noble about abandoning yourself for the sake of someone else's comfort. Here's the truth: real respect doesn't come from how sweet you are. It comes from how steady you are. People respect what they know they can't manipulate. And when you stop trying to please everyone, something powerful happens. You start attracting people who actually value you, not just what they can get from you. You can still be kind and have boundaries. You can still be loving and say no. You can still be caring and walk away from what doesn't serve you. Because being strong doesn't mean being cold. It means you love yourself enough to stop letting your empathy become your enemy. Think about how many times you've said yes just to avoid tension. How many times you've smiled when you wanted to cry. How many times you've downplayed your pain just to keep the relationship smooth. That's not strength. That's survival. And you weren't made to survive in relationships. You were made to grow in them. People who truly care about you don't get mad when you set a boundary. They adjust. They listen. They respect the line you draw because they value the person standing behind it. And if someone gets offended because you finally said no, they were never benefiting from your love. They were benefiting from your lack of limits. So stop thinking that saying no makes you unkind. Stop thinking that disagreeing makes you difficult. Stop thinking that walking away makes you cold-hearted. Those are the lies that keep women small. Those are the beliefs that make you soft in a world that only respects steel. The moment you stop confusing niceness with respect, you take your power back. You realize you don't need to be agreeable to be loved, and you don't need to be submissive to be chosen. The right people don't love you because you're easy. They love you because you're real. And maybe that's what being strong really means. Not hard, not harsh, but honest. A woman who can smile and still say, "That's not okay with me." A woman who can forgive without forgetting what she deserves. A woman who can be gentle, but never again at the cost of her self-respect. Because being nice might make people like you, but being strong makes them respect you. Boundaries. That word alone makes some people uncomfortable, doesn't it? Because the moment you start talking about setting limits, people think you're being selfish, distant, or unkind. But let me tell you something, boundaries are not walls. They're doors with locks. They don't keep love out. They protect the right kind of love from getting destroyed. And too many women were raised to believe that being available all the time, being forgiving no matter what, and being understanding without question is what makes them loving. It's not. It's what makes them exhausted, You can't heal when you keep letting the same people who hurt you back into your life. You can't grow when every time you start finding peace, someone comes in and drains it. A soft heart without boundaries becomes a magnet for chaos. You start mistaking tolerance for love, and you start believing that the more you give, the more they'll change. But people don't change because you love them more. They change because they want to. There's a moment in every relationship, romantic, family, friendship, where your silence teaches someone how to treat you. Every time you let something slide, every time you say, "It's okay, don't worry about it," when it's not okay, you're teaching them what your limits are. And before long, they stop asking what you need because you've trained them to believe you don't. That's not kindness. That's self-neglect disguised as compassion. Setting emotional boundaries isn't about cutting people off. It's about teaching them how to be in your life without destroying your peace. You can love someone deeply and still say, "I'm not okay with this." You can care about someone and still choose distance if being close means losing yourself. Because love without boundaries isn't love. It's dependency. It's fear pretending to be loyalty. And I get it. You don't want to lose people. You don't want to be the bad guy. You think if you just hold on a little longer, if you're just a little more patient, they'll finally understand your heart. But the truth is, people who truly care about you don't need endless chances to prove it. They feel your boundaries and respect them, not because they have to, but because they want to. The moment you draw a boundary, the wrong people will call you selfish. They'll guilt trip you. They'll say you've changed. And you have. You've changed from being a people pleaser to being a person with self-worth. The people who benefited from your lack of boundaries will always be the loudest when you finally set them. But that's not a sign you're doing something wrong. It's proof you're finally doing something right. You don't owe anyone unlimited access to your time, your energy, or your emotions. Your heart is not a public park. It's sacred ground. Stop giving out keys to people who don't even wipe their feet before stepping in. Protecting your energy doesn't make you cold. It makes you wise. It means you've learned that peace is more important than proving your patience. When you start setting boundaries, you'll feel guilty at first. That's normal. That's just the old version of you fighting to survive. The one who lived for approval. The one who mistook overgiving for love. But once that guilt fades, you'll feel something new, peace, freedom, clarity. You'll start realizing that the right people don't drain you. They respect the space you need to breathe. So stop apologizing for protecting your peace. Stop defending your decisions to people who never respected your limits in the first place. You're not being harsh. You're being healthy. You're not being distant. You're being discerning. Because a soft woman without boundaries will always be used. But a strong woman with them will never be mistaken again. How many times have you found yourself explaining, over and over again, what you meant, how you feel, or why something hurt you, just to end up feeling like you were talking to a wall? You repeat yourself, you clarify, you soften your tone, you try again, hoping this time they'll finally understand. But they don't. And deep down, you know it's not because you're unclear. It's because they don't care to understand. There's a difference between someone who can't understand you and someone who won't. One is about capacity, the other is about effort. And when you find yourself constantly explaining, you're not communicating anymore, you're convincing. Convincing someone to see your worth, convincing someone to treat you better, convincing someone that your feelings matter. And that's not love. That's emotional begging dressed up as communication. You can't teach respect to someone who's committed to misunderstanding you. Because for some people, pretending not to get it gives them control. It keeps you on the defensive, always explaining, always proving, always questioning yourself. And the moment they can make you doubt your own emotions, they've already won. That's how manipulation works. It doesn't silence you by force. It exhausts you into silence. You don't owe anyone 1,000 explanations for why something crossed a line. You don't need to keep rewording your pain until it's palatable enough for them to care. If someone truly values you, they'll listen the first time. They'll lean in. They'll ask questions not to defend themselves, but to understand you. And that's the difference between connection and control. Stop over explaining yourself to people who've already made up their minds about you. Stop trying to sound less emotional just so they don't call you dramatic. Stop downplaying what hurt you just so they don't call you sensitive. You don't need to edit your truth to make someone else comfortable with it. Your feelings don't need approval to be valid. It's okay to speak once. It's okay to make your boundary clear and then go quiet, because silence, when it comes from self-respect, is louder than any explanation. It says, "I'm done teaching you how to treat me." It says, "If you cared, you'd already know." And it says it without raising your voice, without begging, without losing your peace. People who care about you will notice your silence. They'll feel it. They'll come to you and say, "Something's off. Talk to me." The ones who don't, they'll enjoy the quiet because it means they got away with it again. That's how you learn who's really in your corner. You don't have to prove your pain to people who caused it. You don't have to justify your boundaries to people who break them. You don't have to explain your choices to people who never respected your options. Let your actions be your explanation. Let distance be your clarity. Because not everyone deserves access to your words, especially the ones who never valued their meaning. When you finally stop explaining yourself, you stop bleeding energy into places that will never refill you. You start realizing that your peace doesn't come from being understood. It comes from understanding yourself. You'll notice that the less you chase validation, the more powerful your silence becomes. You'll stop reacting and start responding. You'll stop defending your feelings and start honoring them. There's power in speaking up, yes. But there's even more power in knowing when to stop. Because sometimes the most confident thing you can say is nothing at all. Silence doesn't mean you lost the argument. It means you finally stopped wasting your breath on people who were never listening. You know what's dangerous? When love starts to feel like confusion. When you're constantly trying to figure out if the way they treat you is affection or control. When "I'm just trying to help you" turns into "you should do what I say." That's not love. That's manipulation wearing a mask. And too many people stay in situations like that because they've been taught to mistake intensity for intimacy. They think the chaos means passion. They think the push and pull means connection. But what it really means is control. Love shouldn't make you question your sanity. It shouldn't make you walk on eggshells trying not to upset someone who claims to care about you. It shouldn't make you feel small so they can feel powerful. Yet that's what happens when you confuse love with possession. When someone starts deciding what's best for you, who you can talk to, how you should behave, all in the name of caring, that's not protection, it's control. Real love doesn't cage you, it builds you. Control often hides behind kindness. It comes with sweet words, with "I just want what's best for you." It disguises itself as concern so you don't see the trap. At first, it feels like love, because they pay attention, they check in, they seem invested. But over time, that attention becomes surveillance. That concern becomes criticism. That care turns into control. And by the time you notice it, you've already started dimming yourself to keep them calm. You start changing how you dress, how you speak, how you react, just to keep the peace. You stop doing the things that make you happy because they might not like it. You start asking for permission instead of partnership. And slowly, piece by piece, you lose yourself trying to keep a relationship together that only survives when you're silent. That's the trap of emotional control. It convinces you that you're the problem. They twist your words until you start doubting your own reality. They hurt you, then tell you you're overreacting. They make you feel guilty for wanting space. And the worst part is, They do it so smoothly that you end up apologizing for things you didn't even do wrong. You don't owe anyone your freedom just because they call it love. The right person will never make you feel smaller so they can feel secure. The right person won't silence your opinions, won't make you choose between your peace and their approval. They'll celebrate your individuality, not control it. They'll respect your independence, not punish it, because real love doesn't shrink you. It expands you. The moment you start feeling like you have to earn someone's love by behaving a certain way, by keeping quiet, by staying small, that's the moment you've stopped being loved and started being managed. That's not partnership, that's power imbalance. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is step back and ask yourself, do I feel safe to be fully myself with this person? If the answer is no, that's not love. That's fear. And fear has no place in something meant to build you. You don't have to prove your loyalty by staying where your spirit is shrinking. You don't have to confuse endurance with devotion. You don't have to keep calling manipulation love just because you're afraid to be alone. Walking away from control isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's remembering that you were whole before they came along, and you'll still be whole when they're gone. Because love should never feel like losing yourself. And if it does, it's not love, it's control. We live in a world that keeps telling women to look confident, act confident, appear confident. But not many are teaching what real strength looks like. Because real strength isn't about how loud you speak, or how bold you dress, or how many motivational quotes you post online. It's not a show. It's not something you perform. It's something you build quietly from the inside out. It's the kind of strength that doesn't need to announce itself because it shows up in your decisions, your self-control, your peace. See, outer confidence is easy to fake. You can wear it like makeup, smile wide, speak firmly, post your best moments, and look like you've got it all together. But when life hits, when people test your patience, when your heart breaks and your plans fall apart, that's when you find out what kind of strength you really have. Because surface confidence fades when no one's watching. Inner strength stays steady no matter who's looking. Building inner strength means you stop relying on validation to feel valuable. You stop chasing attention just to feel seen. You stop needing everyone to agree with you before you feel secure in your choices. It means you start trusting your voice, even when it shakes. You start standing for what's right, even when it's unpopular. You start realizing that peace is worth more than approval. The truth is, confidence can be loud, but strength is calm. Strength doesn't have to prove anything. It doesn't beg, it doesn't explain, it doesn't perform. It simply is. When you've built real strength, you don't crumble every time someone criticizes you. You don't break every time life gets hard. You bend, you adjust, but you don't lose your center. That's the difference between appearing strong and actually being strong. There's a kind of quiet power that comes when you no longer need to be chosen to feel worthy. You don't chase love, you don't compete for attention, and you don't tolerate disrespect just to feel needed. You become the kind of woman who can sit in a room alone and feel full, not because you have everything you want, but because you've learned to rely on yourself. That's not pride, that's peace. And it's not easy to get there. It takes time, it takes heartbreak, it takes choosing yourself on days when it would be easier to give in. But every time you choose your dignity over desperation, you grow stronger. Every time you forgive without forgetting the lesson, you grow wiser. Every time you stay calm in situations that once made you beg or break, you build a new level of strength no one can take from you. You don't have to look tough to be strong. Some of the strongest women are the ones who've been through things that would destroy others, and yet they still love. They still hope. They still choose kindness, not because it's easy, but because they refuse to let the world harden them. That's real strength. Not the kind that shouts, but the kind that endures. The more you build from within, the less you need from the outside. You'll stop trying to prove your worth through how much you do for others, how many people approve of you, or how perfectly you hold everything together. You'll realize that peace is a better look on you than perfection ever was. Because confidence can turn heads, but inner strength changes your life. There comes a point where you have to stop trying to save people who don't want to be saved. And I know that's hard to hear, especially when your heart is wired for compassion. You see the best in people. You see their potential. You believe that if you just love them enough, support them enough, forgive them enough, they'll finally become who you know they can be. But here's the truth. You can't fix someone who's comfortable staying broken. You can hand someone every tool they need, but if they refuse to pick it up, it's not your responsibility to build their life for them. Too many women mistake love for rescue missions. You think if you can just hold them together long enough, they'll eventually rise. But what happens instead is you end up sinking trying to lift them. You start carrying their chaos, their moods, their mistakes, and before you know it, you're exhausted, drained, and unsure of who you even are anymore. Because while you were trying to save them, you stopped saving yourself. You can't keep lighting yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. You can't keep pouring from a cup that's already empty. The truth is, when someone doesn't want to change, your love becomes a cushion for their comfort. You're not helping them grow. You're helping them stay the same. And you tell yourself, maybe if I just hold on a little longer, they'll get it. But they won't, not until they decide to. It's not your job to be their therapist, their parent, or their emotional punching bag. You can support someone without losing yourself in their struggle. You can care about someone deeply and still walk away when their chaos starts costing you your peace. That's not cruelty, that's clarity. You're not abandoning them, you're allowing them to face the truth that they've been avoiding because you've always been there to cushion the fall. You have to understand something. People don't grow when they're comfortable. They grow when they're challenged. And sometimes your presence makes it too easy for them to stay stuck. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is step back and let the consequences do the teaching. That's not being cold-hearted. That's respecting their free will and your own sanity. It takes strength to walk away from someone you care about. It takes courage to stop trying to fix what's not yours to fix. And it takes wisdom to realize that love is not supposed to feel like responsibility. Love is supposed to be shared, not carried. You're not supposed to be the glue that holds everyone together while you're quietly falling apart. You can still wish them the best. You can still pray for them, still hope they find their healing, just from a distance. Because sometimes distance is the only boundary strong enough to protect your peace. And once you create that space, you'll notice something powerful happen. Your energy starts returning. Your focus sharpens. You start remembering what it feels like to breathe again. And here's the thing, the right people, the ones who want to grow, will meet you halfway. You won't have to drag them toward healing. You won't have to convince them to care. You won't have to beg them to match your effort. They'll rise on their own, and you'll finally see what it's like to love someone who stands beside you, not beneath the weight of your effort. Because love was never meant to be a rescue mission. It was meant to be a partnership, and you can't carry someone who's chosen to stand still.